For over a decade, Nate Diaz stood as one of the UFC's most beloved anti-heroes. Raw, relentless, and unapologetically real, he wasn't just a fighter, he was a symbol of defiance. Fans didn't admire him for perfection. They admired him because he bled, suffered, and kept walking forward when others would have quit. But today, the story feels different. His words are slower. His eyes sometimes seem distant. The same fans who once cheered for every bloody war are now whispering concerns about his future. After years of brutal fights, legal issues, and a career built on absorbing punishment, Nate Diaz's legacy has begun to blur into a tragic warning. This is the story of how one of MMA's toughest fighters became a cautionary tale, and why everyone is afraid of what might come next. Born in 1985 in Stockton, California, Nate Diaz grew up in a tough environment with little money and fewer opportunities. Raised by a single mother, Nate and his older brother Nick learned to fight not for glory, but for survival. At 14, Nate followed Nick into Cesar Gracie's gym and discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The gym quickly became his second home and the launchpad for his professional fighting career. His breakthrough came in 2007 on The Ultimate Fighter, Season 5. Nate wasn't the favorite, but he impressed audiences with his grit, toughness, and refusal to quit. Winning the competition earned him a UFC contract and, more importantly, a loyal fan base that embraced his authenticity. Unlike polished stars, Nate wasn't about glamour or showmanship. He was raw, unapologetic, and unfiltered. The kind of fighter who would flip the double bird while choking out an opponent. Fans connected with that. From wars against Clay Guida and Donald Cerrone to grinding battles with Jim Miller and Joe Stevenson, Nate became a symbol of blue-collar toughness inside the cage. Win or lose, fans respected him because he never played the game. He was the game. The defining moment of his career came in 2016, when he stepped in on short notice to face Conor McGregor, the UFC's biggest star. Against all odds, Nate submitted McGregor in the second round and delivered one of MMA's most iconic post-fight lines. "I'm not surprised," expletive. That victory cemented him as a legend. But beneath the swagger, something more dangerous was brewing. Every fight, every slugfest, every bloody war carried an unseen cost: trauma. Nate Diaz's style guaranteed damage. He wasn't known for defense or head movement. He was known for walking through punches, grinning with blood streaming down his face, and overwhelming opponents with volume. But what fans called heart, doctors called something else: repetitive head trauma. His mid-30s saw him fighting veterans like Jorge Masvidal and Leon Edwards, wars that left him battered but still standing. To fans, it was entertainment. To medical professionals, it was cumulative damage that would follow him long after the cage door closed. Soon, the warning signs appeared. Interviews revealed slurred speech, delayed responses, and repeated thoughts. Nate often paused mid-sentence before recovering with a smirk, as if he didn't care. But fans noticed. So did analysts. Slurred speech is one of the earliest symptoms of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the same degenerative brain disease that has devastated countless athletes. Despite visible signs of decline, Nate pushed harder. He demanded bigger fights, higher stakes, and more wars. Fans enabled it because every Diaz fight promised blood, chaos, and drama. The UFC enabled it because Nate brought in millions of pay-per-view buys. In 2022, Nate fought the final bout on his UFC contract. Originally slated to face rising star Khamzat Chimaev, he instead fought Tony Ferguson after Chimaev missed weight. The result was poetic. Two aging legends, both beloved but clearly worn down. Nate won the fight, but fans couldn't ignore the reality. He looked slower, tired, almost like he was fighting more from obligation than passion. He hinted at leaving the UFC behind, talking about owning a promotion and doing things his own way. But beneath the bravado, the cracks were showing. Nate Diaz wasn't just a veteran fighter anymore. He was a man without a safety net. After leaving the UFC, Nate shifted his focus to boxing. In 2023, he signed to fight YouTuber-turned-boxer Jake Paul. The matchup split fans. Some were excited, others horrified. Inside the ring, the truth became clear. Nate's chin held up, but his body and reflexes betrayed him. He smiled through punches, as always, but he was slower, stiffer, and unable to return fire effectively. Across 10 rounds, he absorbed over 100 clean shots. Jake Paul won decisively. Commentators noted how sluggish Nate looked, his movements awkward, his reactions delayed. In post-fight interviews, his speech was more slurred than ever. For many fans, it wasn't entertainment anymore, it was uncomfortable. The fight didn't ruin his legacy, but it did something worse. It exposed how fragile it had become. As if the battles inside the cage weren't enough, Nate's life outside the ring began spiraling into chaos. In April 2023, a viral video surfaced showing Nate choking out a man during a street altercation in New Orleans. The man was left unconscious on the pavement, and police issued an arrest warrant for Diaz. Though the charges were eventually dropped, the incident added to the growing perception that Nate's world was slipping out of control. This wasn't the image of a disciplined athlete. It was the portrait of a man who had been in fight mode for so long that he couldn't switch it off, even in public. Fans began asking themselves a painful question. Was Nate Diaz fighting everyone but himself? Behind the headlines, the deeper concern remained: Nate's health. Fans who once laughed at his mumbling interviews and slow comebacks began realizing it wasn't an act. His words were jumbled, his pauses longer. His famous Stockton slap swagger was still there, but his brain seemed to be fighting against him. Experts suggested these could be early symptoms of CTE, a degenerative brain disease caused by repeated head trauma. Former NFL players, boxers, and MMA fighters have all suffered from it: depression, aggression, memory loss, and tragically, in many cases, early death. Watching Nate Diaz, fans couldn't shake the feeling that they were witnessing the beginnings of the same condition. One of the most tragic parts of Nate's story is how the fight industry seems to profit from his decline. Promoters know that a Diaz fight guarantees attention. Whether in the UFC, boxing, or even potential bare-knuckle matchups, his name brings views, clicks, and pay-per-view buys. But while fans pay for entertainment, the man in the cage pays with his life. Every punch absorbed is another piece of himself lost. And with no retirement plan, no guaranteed pension, and no financial safety net, Nate continues to step into dangerous battles because fighting is all he knows. It's a cycle we've seen too many times. Fighters becoming commodities, chewed up by the system, then discarded when they can no longer perform. The saddest reality is that Nate Diaz doesn't seem to have a way out. Unlike some fighters who transition into coaching, commentary, or business ventures, Nate's brand has always been built on fighting itself. He doesn't play the polished celebrity game. He doesn't sell training courses or open flashy gyms. His identity is tied entirely to violence. Without it, what remains? That's what makes his situation so haunting. He is 38 years old, showing visible signs of damage, yet still chasing fights in boxing and potentially beyond. Every appearance feels less like entertainment and more like a countdown. For fans, Nate Diaz will always be remembered as one of the toughest, most authentic fighters in MMA history. He gave us unforgettable moments: the McGregor upset, the bloody wars, the unfiltered interviews. He represented the fighter who never bowed to authority, never sold out, and always gave everything. But now, his story risks becoming less about glory and more about warning. The legend of Stockton may one day serve as the clearest example of why combat sports need better safety measures, stricter medical checks, and stronger retirement support. Because right now, Nate Diaz is still fighting, but it feels like we're watching a man fight for his very soul. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the rise and fall of one of MMA's most unforgettable icons, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more storytelling on combat sports, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.